Just want to welcome everyone and just give a small introduction. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Wa ba'd. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una wanfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna 'ilman innaka antal alimul hakim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on the concept of success. We're going to approach it, inshallah, and from two perspectives. Look at the concept or the paradigm of motivation, and conversely, we will highlight inspiration, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So I want to start with a personal, journey. Oops. Bismillah. So today's topic, inshallah, so just to give you a heads up, I will be talking for about 45 minutes, generally speaking. And by the way, the slides of the webinar will be available. Anyway, the webinar will be available on YouTube, on Rashidun's YouTube channel, inshallah, within a few hours after this webinar is over. And the links will be shared with you, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And the slides will be available as well for those who would like to receive them. So from a young age, I've always been taught, like everyone, that you have to work hard. You have to do what is expected of you. There are certain external parameters of success, of achievement, of work that you have to abide by. And success is very hard, tough. It's all about grinding. And this whole paradigm has been drilled into our minds. And my personal experience has been struggle with this. So I've seen for myself, I found myself to be, the harder I worked, the more resentment I felt within myself, that I started to hate even the concept of success itself. It started to feel very painful, uncomfortable, and most importantly, I felt I needed to sacrifice who I was in order to achieve success. So as if there was a trade-off that I needed to do, some kind of a transaction, and that was give up myself and achieve success in return. And if I was not willing to give up on myself or to let go of myself, then and my own individuality, then there was no chances of success. And I was actually taught that this was called slacking, laziness, lack of motivation, you're not ambitious, and things like that. So I've received that from many people around me, specifically teachers, mentors, coaches, etc. I would say like sports coaches, etc. So they said you have to sort of give up on your passions and do what needs to be done. And success is not about passions. It's not about what you're passionate about. It's not about what you love. It's not about doing what you love. It's actually about doing what you don't feel like doing. It's about doing the things that you hate doing. This is what success is all about. And as if this was not enough, this was overwhelming. And unfortunately, I would say, and, from a bigger perspective, I would say fortunately, because whatever Allah brings, whatever God brings into our lives is definitely something that is good, even if it's painful and uncomfortable. There's always a wisdom behind everything. So as if all of this was not enough, then as I grew up, I started reading different literature. So I read a lot in self-help literature, and I watched a lot of motivational videos. And I know many people are addicted to those motivational videos, and they sort of beat you up, right? They actually tell you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to give up on your preferences, etc. And they actually make you feel guilty. So there is this thing about, success being very tough, hard, and unpleasant. The journey is very challenging, and it requires you to give up on your passions. It requires you to give up on the things that you love. I also consume that stuff. and I was convinced, and I started beating myself up. Everything that I sort of was attached to, everything that I felt passionate about, I started sort of to let go of it and borrow the principles of success and hard work from outside. See what the parameters were, what society wanted, what was the definition of success and growth, and then I started taking some training sessions. I took a few, I would say, I had a few training experiences where I really let go of myself, let go of my own convictions, and allowed people to shape my mind, allowed people to shape, even tell me how my life should unfold. And I started looking at psychological sort of tests that would tell me what my strengths are and what my weaknesses were. And that then they would, through a certain formula or equation, they would work out what I should be doing in my life. And I listened passionately and so carefully to the advice of other people who would try to dictate how my life should unfold and what I should be doing with my life. But the resistance inside grew bigger. So the more I ignored my inner calling, the more I ignored the voice of my heart, the more painful things became, and the more fragmented I started to experience myself. And I felt my resistance to any kind of achievement grow bigger and became an insurmountable kind of obstacle on my way, until I decided not to take this path anymore. I decided not to take this path anymore. I started to look at other people who achieved success, who followed this kind of formula. And definitely, people who followed this kind of hard work, the emphasis on hard work, and they sacrificed their own, I would say, passions, their own unique individuality for the sake of achieving success according to social parameters, according to external parameters. I started to see them achieving a lot in their life, but there was one catch, and it was important. It started to dawn on me and became very clear. These people, and many of those people, people I knew personally, I started to notice one common thing in them. And there is an analogy that really helped me understand this. I first came across this analogy in the classic, of Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of the most effective people. And his analogy was basically, you could climb the ladder of success only to find out that it is leaning against the wrong wall. This was a wake-up call for me when I read that first, because you could actually work hard and you could achieve success, but if it's not your true calling, if it's not a true reflection of your individuality, of your heart, then it's going to be an empty success. And I've read some biographies and autobiographies about people who, at the pinnacle of success of their career or their business or whatever, they committed suicide. People who were very successful according to the social standards and norms and expectations. And everyone would love to just have the kind of life that they had. But these people were so miserable and they were so empty, and their success meant nothing to them. These were motivation junkies. They allowed society and external forces to define for them what their life should be about and what was the meaning of success, fulfillment, achievement, and a life of meaning. So, and that made them drown their inner voice, the voice of their heart. That forced them to ignore, what was going on inside them, their inner world. They had to ignore it. So what I felt, and I thought at that time, this is pretty much like someone who runs a marathon. Let's say roughly, you're talking about maybe some marathons are about 40, 42 kilometers. So these people run a marathon. Someone ran a marathon and they did a very good job. And it's obviously a very tough thing. And before you run a marathon, you obviously need a long time of conditioning, at least 6 months at least, but ideally a year or maybe 2 of hard work until you build the stamina and the physical conditioning until you are able to actually take part in a proper and compete in a marathon. So imagine you have conditioned yourself, let's say over a year, you worked very hard, and then in the marathon, on the day of the marathon, you ran very fast and you did your best. And to reach the finish line, finishing first. And then to realize that there were different tiers, or that there were different groups in the marathon. So there was more than one marathon taking place. There was one for, a certain age range. There was one for males and females. There was one for people with physical disabilities. And you actually figured out, as you have crossed the finish line and you came first, that you actually ran the wrong marathon. And where you were registered and your name was not registered, to realize this was an empty success. So many people, it seems to be and it's actually many people are going into this, that they're going through their life and they're achieving success only to realize that they have betrayed themselves, and their success becomes meaningless. It becomes a source of pain, regret, and sometimes shame. So when this idea became clearer to me, it was some sort of relief. Because when I tried to follow external advice, and I actually started a couple of projects, or actually a few projects, and every time I started them, I just felt like I felt miserable inside. It felt really bad to drown the voice of my own heart, and to ignore my own calling, and to completely follow external parameters. It felt really bad. It felt like it was the lowest, probably these were the lowest moments in my own life. And that caused me to research even further and start to look at things, maybe from a different perspective. And I came across this Canadian best-selling author from Indian roots, Robin Sharma. And I read some of his books and I watched some of his interviews, and I was really, something caught my attention, because he was a successful lawyer and he was making a lot of money. And he said, every time I woke up in the morning to get ready to go to work, I looked in the mirror and I hated myself. Day in and day out, I started hating myself, and I couldn't live with myself anymore. And I realized, although I was successful in my career and I was making lots of money, it did not resonate. That was not me. That was a lie. I was living a lie. And then he said, I decided to listen to the voice inside of me. And he pulled out of his career and he decided to pursue his passion. And then when he pursued his passion, he eventually wrote a book on that. And I think that his first book was The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And that became a bestseller. It became a big hit. And then that was a new career. He launched a new career, and that was to become an author, non-fiction author. And many of his books actually became, bestsellers. And he started, getting into training, started training people, training leaders, and so on and so forth. That actually opened my mind and allowed me to look at my own past, my own life in a different life, or in a different light. Then I came across the very famous graduation, ceremony where Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, the very famous graduation, speech that he made, when he spoke about that you actually, do what you love, because there will be a lot of obstacles on the way. And unless you are following your passion, you won't be able to continue. And if you just continue again, you would have betrayed yourself anyway. And that made me actually think about, my own life, and think about even how I practiced, Islam itself. Because a lot of the education that I did at the early stages of my life was actually forced. It was something that I had to do. It was why? Because these were the parameters, these were the expectations. So I want to share with you. So today we are meeting here. I want to share with you my thoughts about this. And subhanAllah, when I figured this out, I switched to another way. So rather than being a motivation junkie who's always, devouring all of these motivational videos and these books and these words of encouragement, and look at other people's success, and then, work from that place of trying to be like someone else, I actually gave up on all of this. And I started looking at my so-called laziness in a different light. And that changed everything for me. I realized what I had was not laziness. I was not slacking. And I suffered from what I called at the time procrastination. And when I looked at that in the new light, I realized it was not procrastination. But there was part of me that wanted to be authentic, that wanted to be true to myself. I didn't want to betray myself. So this was inner resistance. This was the true voice inside of me telling me, you're just betraying yourself. You're just following, you're abandoning yourself, your true self, just to be an image that is drawn by external factors and forces and by society, which might not be yours. It did not resonate with me. So instead of looking down upon my procrastination and my so-called laziness and slacking and lack of ambition, I actually appreciated them because they helped me to remain true to myself. And then that led me to start, going deeper within myself and be honest. And when I did that, everything in my life changed. Everything changed. And I believe I had that at an earlier stage, because the majority of people who have this kind of awakening, they have it, in middle age. They call this the middle age crisis. People start changing career. People realize, even at the pinnacle of their success, they realize it's an empty success. This is not what I wanted to live. What I wanted to live. This has no substance to it. I can't live like this anymore. I just want to be true. I want to be genuine. I don't want to sell myself out to an external image that was drawn by society and maybe due to other factors. So that's what I decided to do myself. So I figured out, and then things started to come together. And when I remember sometimes having conversations with people or receiving some advice from people who were saying to me, you're growing older and you don't seem to be achieving what you set out to achieve previously. And I thought to myself, subhanAllah, I was acting from a place of so much calm and peace. Since I am being true to myself, I decided to turn my life into just a true self-expression without attaching to any outcome. I decided to live my own true destiny. I decided to be true to the voice of my heart, to live from my heart, not to live from my mind, not to live from any social image, not to live from external expectations, not to live from reputation. I decided to live from within, just to be true to myself and true to my Creator. And whatever outcomes come about, whenever they come about, let them come. I don't mind. I'm not going to rush anything before its due time. I'm not in haste. There's no place that I need to reach so that I can borrow a sense of self from it. So I can say, yeah, I achieved this, so now I can feel good about myself. Or I can build some kind of reputation and say, okay, that's who I am. Because I realized that none of this was really myself. My true self is something that is between me and myself. It's something that's between me and my Lord, my Creator. That's it. And when I turn my attention to that inner world, I'm telling you, I find myself in a place in my life where I don't need any external confirmation of my success. And instead of chasing something outside of myself, it's actually the other way around now. I find my success to be just being self-expressive, to speak what's in my heart, to speak from my heart. And as long as I'm on this path, that's it for me. There's nothing I need to reach. If anything comes along the way, that's a blessing from Allah. So I try my best to be in this state all the time. And I don't need to be motivated. I don't need to be motivated. Sometimes I work 18 hours a day, and I don't feel, it's not like hard work at all. It's actually fun. It's more like a dance, if you like. I'm just enjoying myself, and I'm having fun, and I feel I'm growing. And somebody who looks at me from outside and they say, man, you're working so hard. And I say, it's not labor at all. I don't feel the labor part of that at all. I'm just gliding into all of this. Why? Because I'm just being true to myself. I'm just expressing myself. And inshallah, more on reflections on this will come as I'm speaking. So we have these two different paradigms, either motivation, which comes from, again, the external part of who you are. This is your persona, your social identity. That's an idea that was actually built or given to you by your parents, people in your life, and then the larger society. And then we sort of tend to accept this as this is who we are. We leave our true self and we hold on to this and we embrace it as our true self. And when you live from that place, from that idea, you would realize it's empty. So you always need some kind of external motivation to fill you up, because that idea, that sense of self is empty. You need external validation. You need encouragement from outside. You need praise. You need external proofs of your success. You need accolades. You need degrees. You need titles. You need a reputation to feel a little bit of satisfaction, which actually ends up being short-lived and very temporary. And then you will inevitably find yourself in that empty, meaningless sense of self and state. So this is why you need motivation. This is why you need to push yourself to work, force yourself to work. So this is what is usually being, propagated. This is what's been circulated, and people have been, convinced or brainwashed that this is the way to success. But there is actually another path, which is more efficient, more effective, and it's way more easier. And it's more fulfilling. And that's inspiration. Inspiration. So we're going to explore where motivation comes from and where inspiration comes from and what are the differences. But before that, we have to understand who we are as human beings. Because without understanding our humanness and what we are made of, it's actually very hard. It's very easy to confuse inspiration with motivation. Many people, it's actually, motivation is a very catchy word. It's one of those, sweet spots where everyone, how can I motivate myself? How can I motivate myself? So this is why, as I'm speaking today, I will use a neutral word, which is drive. And drive, I say it's a drive for action. It's a drive for action. It's neutral. I'm not, when I say drive, I'm not basically alluding to where it comes from. But when I say motivation, it's a form of drive, but it's superficial. It comes from the surface, external, fake sense of self. And when I talk about inspiration, it's another form of drive, but it comes from deep within. It comes from your very being. And it is very smooth. It's very natural. It's organic. So generally speaking, we humans, and I'm assuming, and again, this is a very simplistic, classification that I'm sharing with you here about the composition of the human self. Let's assume your mind is basically, and that's your thoughts, your thinking, is just neutral, needs to be filled with content. So we have the element of the body, of who we are, our physical being. And when that controls our mind, this is where the external sense of self or ego is created. This is what society emphasizes. So because in your physical being, there are two forces, and these are your carnal-based desires, the desire for pleasure, and the second one is actually desire for power, authority, and aggression. So these are characteristics of your body. They are also found in animals that share with us this physical, being, or this physical origin. And when these dominate the mind, this is where your sense of self, your sense of ego comes from. It's all about your desires. It's all about filling yourself up. It's all about me. This is the self-centered approach. Whereas we humans, we don't have to live this way. And by the way, most of our educational systems, they emphasize this and they allow it to grow. Whereas we humans have a deeper dimension. And that deeper dimension is what we refer to as the heart. It's part of the unseen world. We don't have access to it through our senses. It's an inner experience and you are able to access it. And this is where the soul is. This is where your spiritual nature is. And your spiritual nature is not only some kind of power that animates your body. Many people think soul is just energy that animates your body. That's it. It's just like electricity. No, this is a small aspect of your soul. Your soul has a life of its own. It's an entity. It actually has wisdom in it. It has inbuilt wisdom. It has its own perception. It has its own experience. And the interesting thing about us humans is that this is the essence of our sense of self. Originally, this is where our sense of self is. So we are primarily spiritual creatures. And in Islam, the classification is that the soul is a heavenly creature. It comes from heaven. It actually comes from heaven. Its origins are heavenly. So it has the characteristics of the higher world. Whereas your physical being, your physical body is an earthly creature. And it possesses the characteristics and the traits and the tendencies and proclivities of the earth. So animals are more like the physical element of who we are. So humans end up, the configuration of humans, and again, this is a very simplistic, explanation. Humans end up in one of two shapes. Either the body dominates the mind and it puts the soul inside, it puts the soul down. So you become a persona. And this is unfortunately where most of us humans reside for the most part. We actually accept who society tells us that we are. We accept how they treat us. And from that, we form a sense of self, an idea. An idea, what I call I, me, my, is actually it becomes based in an idea that was imparted to me by society, by how people treated me, but how they look at me. And I build a sense of self out of that. I build a self-definition and I start living from that idea. And this is where you become very vulnerable. You actually become very susceptible to emotional trouble, to mental illness. And you become very dependent on external validation. And you're always looking forward to people's judgment. And you always want people to approve of you. You want people to confirm to confirm even your existence and give you some kind of a license as to why you are worthy. So you take your self-worth from external sources. So you become extremely dependent on people outside and on the society and on external parameters of success in order to feel good about yourself. So you become a slave to the external world. Whereas, and this is, so the body, again, I said these are these two sort of basic elements or forces and drives in the body. And yeah, when that body on that physical aspect dominates you, you are stuck in your ego. You become very self-centered again. So the world, your life becomes all about me, confirmation. It's all about you. The very central thought in every thought process you have is actually this false sense of self. And by doing that, you disconnect from your spiritual being. And what happens with that? You lose all virtue, because virtue is native to your soul. And when you push your soul to the side, you're actually cutting yourself off from any source of real goodness. And there will be still some virtue will seep into your experience, but it will be very minimal. So again, when the sort of your physical being dominates, it sort of dominates the mind and controls it. And it pushes the soul down. And if you can see that there's a small, very small common area between the soul and the mind, because still some elements of the soul will still feed into your experience. And that's what actually makes, life bearable. Even when it's, even when people are very selfish, there's still a little bit, because if we were to cut ourselves completely off from our spiritual being, we would turn into monsters. And it actually happens. So the atrocities you hear about, like whatever happened in Nazi Germany and in the massacres that were done in the in for example, communist Russia in the early 20th century, where millions of people were killed, etc. What's happening in Syria, for example, and in different parts of the world, when what happened in Bosnia. So certain kind of human, monstrous, heinous crimes come in a state where people disconnect almost completely from their spiritual being. People turn into monsters and beasts. But for most of us who live from our ego, still there is some element of soul coming in. So when the body dominates the mind, let's just look at, or when the soul dominates the mind, let's look at the opposite. Basically, the soul is very expansive and it's very rich. So it dominates the mind, and it dominates the mind. And if it dominates the mind completely, it does not push the body away. It actually incorporates the body, and it helps you take care of the body. So this is why you start to have a holistic experience about your body. You start to see even your body as a sacred, divine gift. It's unlike the case when your self or your ego dominates and pushes the soul away. The soul doesn't push your sense of self away. It doesn't push your body away. It actually incorporates it. So this is just a visual demonstration, but again, the important thing now is the feeling part of what we are going to say. So the concept of motivation, again, depends on your ego when it dominates, because it's all about your self-importance. So let's see what happens, how we behave humans when we are dominated by motivation. And again, this is when I started explaining to you what I've been through. And I know this is the story of many people. And even not only by the way, in worldly success, I'm talking about even those who want to be devout, those who want to worship their Lord, those who want to be practicing Muslims, and who want to be good people. Unfortunately, even this, when we are taught this stuff, we are taught to do it for selfish reasons. Even sometimes when we are taught to be generous, we are taught to be generous from a position of selfishness. So we become selfishly generous. So, for example, you donate money. Why? Because it's not so much, there's a little bit of caring about the needy, but it's more about me, having satisfaction about myself. It's all about me proving to myself that I'm a good person, I'm a generous person. That's the dominance of motivation, of the motivational paradigm. And the problem is, it doesn't fill you up. It doesn't make you true. Again, you do good, but not from a good position. And this is why whatever good you do will be conditional. When you love, you don't just give love unconditionally. You're not embracing, your true spiritual nature. You're not coming from your heart. You're not living from the heart, so that you give love unconditionally and you give forgiveness unconditionally. No, you're giving to receive, because and the kind of love you're giving is not true love. It's just a replica. It's not the true love. You give it to receive. And this is why, if you do not receive the payoff from the love you're offering, you will stop offering any more love. And that's the problem with motivation. Motivation is all about, it's self-centered. That's the point. And it's self-serving. So you will give only to receive. And if you don't receive, you would stop giving. And you would invest in an area only when it pays off. And if it doesn't pay off, you won't invest in it. You're not coming from a place of virtue. And the receiving that you are expecting is something that has to serve you. You have to be the ultimate, beneficiary of this. You have to be on the receiving end ultimately. You will only give to receive. That's the problem. And what will happen again with motivation, and those among us, which are the majority, who actually act from motivation, there would always be a sense of desperate pursuit. In the sense that I work hard towards a specific target, and I would die to get that target accomplished. And if I don't get it, it's an extremely painful experience. That's attachment to the outcome. And that makes you inconsiderate of others. And this will make you also make immoral decisions. You'd say whatever it takes, because your whole sense of self is consumed and is dependent upon reaching an outcome. And this will put you in survival mode. And when you are in survival mode, this is life or death. Because literally you would experience that your whole sense of being, your life depends on arriving at that, target. And if you don't hit it, then it's like death, because it's death of your ego. And actually, even your body would respond to it with a stress response, with cortisol, adrenaline, and stress hormones. And you'd actually be in a fight or flight response. And when you are in that state, eventually you will actually make unoptimal, immoral decisions, because you're in survival mode. It's a necessity for you. So that becomes attachment to the outcome. And that's when you come from a motivational place. Yes, you will do a lot of work. You'll have a lot of discipline. But in the process, you will run over many principles, many people. You will break many hearts. You will injure a lot of individuals. And you will create a lot of damage. And you'll leave a lot of wreck behind you. Because again, your sense of self is drawn from the external achievement. Again, so you're acting from emptiness. You have this deep-seated realization that I am empty, I am nothing, I am worthless. And I'm so needy, I need something to confirm my existence, my worth, my value. And it must be that success. And why is it? Why does it have this capacity to validate who I am? Because it draws attention. Because it wins you external validation. So you become a slave of people's opinion. You're no longer a free person. And if you look at many achievers, they're actually acting from this paradigm. And this is what motivates them. And they're very disciplined and they're hardworking. But again, they're bringing a lot of damage as they are reaching their success. And even when they reach their success, and this is something that is very common in the biographies of many successful people, is that the moment we reached our success, there was an initial excitement. It was very temporary, short-lived, and eventually there was, a sense of emptiness. Is that it? Is there anything more to this? It doesn't feel like I thought at the beginning, right? And when you get to that state, it's emptiness. So the signpost starts moving further. You start looking for another goal, and you keep your life chasing and chasing and chasing this kind of an illusion that you think is going to give you some sense of self or complete your sense of self, because you're incomplete. And this is where attachment to outcome comes from. And this is, this kind of, you seek your sense of self from external factors. And you're always in a state of lack, and you want to fill that void. That's the problem. So what's going to happen? It's actually, there's a mindset, or there's a worldview behind all of this. So let's look at some of those elements. I am on my own in this world. People who act for motivation, this is how they think deep inside. This is how they feel towards the world around them. I am on my own in this world I am on my own in this world that is full of random objects and forces. So for them, the world is random. There's no purpose to this world. There is no order to this world. the arrangement of things is purposeless. That's it. So there's just random objects, and I have to, create a direction, and I have to make things happen. I am on my own, and I have to make things, work in my favor. Everything, again, self-centeredness. I have to take matters in my own hands. There's no one to help me. Everyone is for themselves, right? I have to do it. There is, again, no divine plan, no grand scheme for things. And that's the problem with motivation, by the way. It has this assumption underneath that Allah, our creator, God, has abandoned us. And we are just in this ocean of factors, causal factors that are random. We have to do things on our own. I have to take matters in my own hands. I'm the one who does. I have to do, and I have to force myself into doing it. No one watches for me. Again, everyone is for himself. The more I get, the more I make, the better it is. It is always a race, a never-ending striving for more, and you never arrive. And it's all about me. It's all about me being the best. It's all about me getting all these degrees. It's all about me buying this new house, and so on and so forth. So that's where motivation comes from. This is where, this is actually praised a lot. And a lot of us, this is what we teach our children. Some people make their kids memorize Quran and learn Islam for this reason. And the Prophet ﷺ said in an authentic hadith that من طلب العلم ليماري به السفهاء ويباهي به العلماء ويشار إليه بالبنان فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. That a person who seeks knowledge, and he's talking here about spiritual, religious, Islamic knowledge. Whoever seeks knowledge, which is a great virtue in Islam, who seeks knowledge in order to argue with people, and in order to compete with scholars, and in order for him to be recognized, or for her to be recognized for their erudition and their knowledge, then let this person, get a guarantee of their place in the hellfire. And sometimes, good parents, that's what they do with their kids. And that's what they do with themselves. But, it's deeper than that. It's deeper than achieving these things. And these things can be achieved through the right way, through the right intention, which is inspiration. Any virtue, by the way, you can twist it to become self-serving. And this is why we always need a deeper approach than the external parameters of what is good. We need a holistic approach to all of this. So let's look at inspiration. And this is a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, because many people think, if I don't motivate myself, if I don't motivate my kids, they're not going to do anything. They're going to procrastinate. They will slack. They will not be ambitious. And this is the wrong assumption. Because you're assuming that people are empty and idle by nature, by default. This is actually not true. There's another dimension within you, and that's your heart. That's your inspiration. You need to tap into that. That's your spiritual nature. You need to tap into it. Inspiration, by the way, means in spirit, meaning you're acting from your soul, from your spiritual side. Look at this beautiful prophetic wisdom. The Messenger ﷺ says, and look at how things unfold in life. Whoever has this worldly life as his main purpose, and again, this is more in line with motivation, or the motivational paradigm, Allah will increase his pursuits and concerns. There's a lot for them to do. They have to do a lot. Allah will increase their pursuits and concerns, and will let lack and poverty meet him or her wherever he looks or she looks. And he will only get from this life, what was preordained by Allah. Again, you will work hard, you will achieve something, but that thing was already written for you anyways, because nothing happens except what was written. But your approach to it was very difficult and full of labor. Let's look at inspiration. And whoever makes the akhirah, which is the next life, meeting their Lord, their main purpose in this life. And this is acting from the heart, from the soul. Allah will reduce his concerns into one. Meaning, there's not a lot of pursuits. Life is gathered into one purpose. And this purpose is so encompassing that it includes everything else. But it feels like one. You're not scattered. You're not fragmented. There is clearly a very unified, holistic, direction in your life. Allah will reduce his concerns into one and will impart a sense of wealth and abundance in his heart. This person will have satisfaction inside, so they will not pursue their goals out of neediness. There's no attachment to the outcome. They don't feel anything outside, any success they achieve is going to add any sense of self to them. They're already full. They're already whole. They're acting from that richness within that is built in. That's inspiration. Look at what happens in the world after that. And Allah will make this world serve him. Allah will make this world serve this person, even if it were to refuse it. Allah, because Allah controls the world. God controls this world. It's under his command. Allah will arrange the world in a way that it will serve you if you act from that place within. So let's look at, we looked at motivational worldview. Let's look at inspirational point of view. What are the assumptions underneath? How does it see the world? How does this kind of person who live from their heart and they approach life from that place, how do they see the world? For them, there is a transcendent will that permeates the universe and sets everything in motion. This is opposed to the idea or theory of randomness. There is no randomness. Everything in this world is happening according to a divine plan. There is divine will that is transcendent, that is animating the world, everything in it, at every level. Whether you're talking about galaxies, the level of macro level of the galaxies, or you're talking about the micro level, the smallest, which is the subatomic particles. Everything runs according to plan, according to that will. Everything in existence is a product of this will. It's like a stream that is running through existence. The world as you see it, existence as you're experiencing it, is actually a product. It is this will manifesting in reality. This will is creative, merciful, wise, it's love-based, it's unlimited, and is responsive. So anyone who's just scraping on this, please hold back your whatever. Oh, come on, man. And then if you can, I'm not sure if you can handle this.
Yes, one second. I will.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so this will is creative, merciful, wise, it's love-based, unlimited, and responsive. This is how the world unfolds, by the way. This is the source of the world. All causal forces, you might say, okay, what about, causal factors in the world? What about people who come from a place of motivation? They're very hardworking, they are driven, and they are doing things for selfish reasons. What's going to happen? How is this divine will transcendent, and how is it universal? How is it running everything? Because there are things in life that seem to be the product of the will of individuals, right? So all causal forces in the world are tools and instruments used by this universal will as it animates objects. So again, this will does not act at the same level, you act and I act. No, it actually, our actions, our intentions are already accounted for in that divine transcendent will. Whatever you might think, okay, I'm just going to do this. I just came up with an idea and I'm going to do it. And you do it. You think, okay, I just did that on my own. No, this is already part of that plan. So it's always ahead of you. It's always ahead of you. This is why it's transcendent. So what is our relationship to this universal, transcendent will that is animating the universe, that is shaping the universe, everything in the universe. Our relationship with divine will is experienced at 3 dimensions or 3 levels. We experience it at the level of being, that's your heart. You experience it emotionally, in terms of thinking, and in terms of your heart, spirituality. You also experience it at the level of doing, and you experience it at the level of destiny. What does that mean? Being means you either recognize this will and you see its unfolding. That's mental, perceptual. And you either accept it because it's inevitable, it's going to happen. When you accept it emotionally, your experience will be positive. You don't resist reality. But if you resist it, if you don't like it, then your emotional state will be painful. Spirituality, at the level of spiritual, the way you experience it, you either align with it, you live in sync with it, where actually you will catch its momentum and you will be able to build on its momentum. So what seems to be hardworking from an external observer is actually for you a matter of fun. It's a matter of fun. Or spiritually, you deny it and you act as if it doesn't exist. You think, oh, there's just randomness in the world, and your life will be, an experience of striving. And even if you achieve what you set out to achieve, it will end up being meaningless. As I said, you will just run the wrong marathon. You will climb the ladder and succeed only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. So this is at the level of being. At the level of doing, you can figure out there is a way for you to harness the direction of this divine will. You'll be able to harness it and work with it rather than work against it. And then everything you do will be just fun, and the things that you do will be blessed. You will do very little, but the amount of benefit and service and contribution that comes out of that will be profound and powerful. Why? Because you're not resisting the flow of reality. There will be blessings. And this is the meaning in the hadith or the prophetic statement that I just quoted, that this world will be at your service. Allah will bring it to your service. Even if hypothetically the world were to refuse, it will still have to come to your service. And then in terms of destiny, you actually start to see where all of this is leading to. And you will have a long-term vision that's not limited to this world. You'll start to see any kind of contribution you bring about in this world is actually becomes a stepping stone to your ultimate destiny, to your eternal life after this worldly life. So let's look at the relationship. Generally speaking, we can characterize it into 2. Either you live your life in harmony with this divine will, this universal will, either harmony, where you align with it and it resonates with you. So you live your life in peace, in tranquility. There's no resistance. Whatever happens in the world, you realize it's working for you. Whatever you want to do in this world, it's not coming from a selfish place. It's coming from a deeper dimension in your heart that is already connected to the flow of divine universal will. So when you act, you're not acting from a selfish place. You're actually, the drive to act comes from a very subtle understanding within you of the direction of that will. This will already informs you, it inspires you, and it gently directs you to where you should be going. Okay, or you can act in resistance. You act in resistance, you think, I'm on my own, the world is random, I have to make things happen. It's all about grit, hard work, it's all about discipline, it's all about working against all the odds. I mean, again, if this is your attitude, this is what you're going to get. And you might get results, but again, they will be empty. It will be an empty success. When you act, by the way, with harmony, for someone who's observing you from outside, they will actually wonder, where do you get all this energy from? Because you seem to be working hard, but your inner experience is one of flowing, And by the way, in psychology, there is this experience of flow, right? They say you're in the zone. There's few expressions, but generally speaking, you are in a flow, you are in the zone. And it's characterized, by the way, by a few things. The most notable are two things. One, there is a loss of the sense of self. Check it out, flow state. It's when people are most creative, most productive, when the best ideas are born, and when the best works of art are actually produced. People are in a state of flow. So it's been studied extensively by a professor. Especially the most notable one is a professor at the University of Chicago. I think he is retired now. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, that's his name. I think he's Hungarian originally. So some of the main two characteristics, he identified four or five, but the two most powerful and attention catching ones are actually, there is a loss of sense of self. The person in a state of flow, they lose their sense of self. No ego. They lose this fake persona. They're acting from their soul. When you act from your soul, by the way, there is no rigid, well-defined sense of self. There is just openness. There's just expansion. There is just love, passion, flowing. That's it. Second one, there is unawareness of the sense of time, loss of the sense of time. You lose touch with time. And again, this is spiritual. This is the soul. The soul has nothing to do with time. It's outside the boundaries of time. So this is a beautiful connection here. Okay, so in inspiration, just as opposed to motivation, how does the person act? They act from wholeness centered. Again, there's no sense of self. You're just bringing whatever is within you. The treasures in your heart are just coming out, being expressed in physical form. Service is the highest value. You just want to be a good presence in the world. You just want to serve others. You just want to give others. You want to be generous, because that's the nature of the soul. That's the nature of divine will as it flows. It's all about giving. Imagine, look at the world around you. You're given everything freely. Sun, water, the air, all of that. Whatever you need is actually given freely. But we humans commercialize things and sell them, right? Okay, behavior is expressive of the realization of inner abundance. Again, when you come from the heart, there is a sense of abundance. There's no neediness. So everything you do is an expression of that abundance rather than an act of seeking. There is no sense of self, only a healthy, intuitive sense of being. Again, you become transcendent. And then acting flows from a sense of wholeness. You're just doing, you're just going through the motions seamlessly, effortlessly. And again, for an outside observer, they say you're so motivated, but actually you're not. You're just inspired. You're on purpose. Okay, so what is the conversation? And again, I took a little bit more time, but I hope you guys are able to stay with us. But inshallah, hopefully this, as we finish, not much is left, but inshallah, hopefully the idea, you will get the idea, you'll get the gist of the idea. As long as you get the feel of it, that's all there is, by the way. Don't be stuck with specific information. Some information, is a little bit hard for you here. Don't be stuck with it. As long as you get the feel of what I'm saying, that's all we need today. So how do we converse? There's a dynamic conversation between us and this divine will that is animating the universe, including ourselves. So your will and divine will are not on equal footing. Again, it's acting from a higher place. So this is why your will and your drive is actually already included in that. But the difference is either it is included in harmony or in resistance. Divine will is transcendent. It is not bound by time. Again, it's transcendent. It goes over everything. And again, even your conversation with this divine will, although it's happening now, you're experiencing it now, but it happened way before the creation of the heavens and the earth. Because divine will comes from, the preserved tablet, the written script for the world. And that took place way before the creation. So it happened then, but you're experiencing it now. So whatever your will produces in this world, you might think, oh, I'm acting on my own will. People are doing what they want. No, this is just how you experience things. But the reality is whatever your will produces, it is already included and is superseded by divine will. Whatever we eventually do will always turn out to be what the divine will already decided. Again, so you just can't go against it. Yes, you resist it in your experience, but the reality is whatever you come up with, an idea, you think you've just created an idea, it's already there in the divine will. Our ultimate choice in reality, so somebody might say, okay, so we're just bound by this, right? It's fate. We don't have any sense of choice. You have a choice. And the ultimate choice you have is actually, you choose whether to exercise your individual will in harmony with divine will or in resistance to it. That's the choice you have. Divine will is going to manifest. Divine will manifest. Your will is included in it. So whatever you decide to do and you actually end up doing was already, part of that divine will and plan. But the difference is, did you approach it from a place of harmony and alignment, or you approached it with resistance, thinking you do on your own, thinking you initiate on your own and things are just random? Okay, so the question now, that's the big question. How do we work in harmony with the divine will? Meaning, how do we reach a place of inspiration? How do we live our life from a position of inspiration? First, understand your humanness. And again, this webinar today is the time is way shorter than we are able to do justice to any of this. But again, if you follow us on Rashidun, and again, I communicate usually through my Facebook page, public page, or inshallah, the website will be ready very soon, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. And also the YouTube channel, inshallah, will start to be active. So this video, inshallah, will be posted there. Then I'll be trying to make videos almost every 2 weeks. So we will try, generally speaking, to answer such a question: how to understand your humanness. What does it mean to be human? What are the elements active within you? How to, configure the elements within you in a way that, brings you in alignment with this divine will. Live from your heart, live from the heart, and then you can use your mind and intelligence. But don't live from an idea, which is the ego or persona. And when you do that, you will use your heart as a tool, and it's not going to be good. Harness the inspiration and the guidance of divine will and follow its lead. And that's again when you connect to your heart, when you start living from within, when you listen to the voice inside of you, when you don't tell yourself off. If you are lazy about something, by the way, it's not something you need to get rid of. Laziness is a message from your inner heart. It's resistance. There's a reason, because your heart might be telling you by means of laziness or lack of ambition that you're trying to push me in the wrong direction. I'm not going there. So not all laziness or procrastination is actually bad. You need to dig deeper. Use your sense of purpose and mission. Your sense of purpose and mission will open up incrementally. Be patient. Again, a lot of people, they just want to know, what should I be doing with my life? This is something that opens up and unfolds slowly. Just like as you grow an apple tree, you're not going to get the apples tomorrow or next year. And you can't, speed up the growth of the tree. If you actually do that with fertilizers and chemicals, you're just going to ruin it. You're not going to get a good apple tree. So things take time. This is the unfolding of this divine will. And if you are acting from a place of haste, you're acting from motivation. Inspiration is patient. It has all the time in the world. There's no haste. Rapport will emerge. This kind of connection and understanding will emerge between your heart and your mind. So again, there's no conflict between your heart and your mind. And your intuitions will grow more practical and insightful. So when you start on this journey, many people will say, you're not motivated, you lack the drive, you're not about results, you're just, waste your time thinking, contemplating. No, it's be practical, be real. This is what these people will say. But these people are stuck in motivation. And subhanAllah, I personally have met many of these people who sort of, again, did not personally treat me well because they thought I was, wasting time, or I was not serious, or I lacked ambition. And these people were very productive. But I'm telling you, subhanAllah, years later, sometimes 15 years later, these people are still very productive at the same level, and they have not really upgraded to a higher level because they were stuck at a very low frequency. And the very little that I do at these times, very little that I do, is actually, subhanAllah, produces way more than they produce in a month. And I'm talking about a matter of 2 or 3 hours. So you are acting with two systems. You can think of this inspiration system as a quantum experience. It's way more profound, where little effort pays off great dividends. It's very powerful. Where, as opposed to working so hard at the level of motivation and producing very little, even when you produce it. And if you produce a lot, it's actually meaningless. And you'll see a lot of some of the most successful people in the world who act from motivation. You find that they are the richest people in the world, and they are the most miserly. Or you will find them the most greedy and really poverty-stricken people. Why? Because they don't have any sense of abundance within, because they're acting from motivation. They always want more. They never get enough. And this is one reason why there is a lot of imbalance in the world, by the way, especially when it comes to wealth. Whereas people who act from inspiration, for them, they feel divine love and care within them, and they see it in the world around them, and they decide to bring it, to be an instrument for that divine will, to bring that goodness to the world. And that's what they want. And then because they give that abundance comes back to them. But it's not an attachment for them. It just comes to them. And when it comes to them, they appreciate it as a gift, and they put it to good use. So that's, generally speaking, the difference between, again, motivation and inspiration. So again, sorry for taking a little bit more time, but I'll be happy to take questions now. So inshallah, we are able to do that. Brother Adnan, do you want to take over?
Jazakumullahu khairan, Sheikh. That was a very impactful and powerful session. I'm still in my thoughts. I don't know what to say, but the chat box is open.
Okay.
Questions are coming in, and just a quick guide for everyone posting questions. Please make sure your questions are posted to everyone and not the host. So they are put out in public and they're not sent in as direct messages. Jazakumullah khairan.
Okay. So we have Sister Camila here, I believe. No, there's one before. 1 second. So we have, I believe, Burhanuddin. What work are you involved in now that brings out your true purpose? It's what you see me doing now, speaking about these things. So it's basically living in the, you mentioned working 18 hours a day. Okay, so basically the work that I'm involved in is actually finding this paradigm in our classical books, in our tradition, Islamic tradition, seeing it's scattered all over the place. Hardly can find any specific even chapter on this, let alone a book. It's only statements scattered here and there, and a lot of hints that are indirect. And even in the divine text, in the Quran and in the Hadith tradition of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So looking for that, searching for that, and figuring out what that means. and how is that implemented, and how can one live by that. So this is what I do. And then the work of actually making this a reality in my life, living it rather than just talking about it, making this my lifestyle, the way I live, and then writing about this, researching it, documenting it, then engaging with the ideas, because the idea goes through a long journey, by the way, when it first flashes, and then to you putting it in words, then refining it, then maybe compounding it, and then it develops into more clarity. Many times I say things it's only myself that is able to understand. And when I post them sometimes on social media, or when I share them with someone, they don't make sense to them. So I realize I need to work on them more until they become more crystal clear. So that's a lot of production. So yes, and I work a lot with my I'm involved a lot with my own children. I believe myself to be the main teacher of my kids, and dealing with kids is such a tough thing. And I basically try to be a good presence in my kids' life, all based on this paradigm, by the way. So all of this for me is actually the kind of work that I do. So for more than 16 years, actually, I haven't been very public. I've been actually more or less in the hiding. I've been trying to do the back end work of all of this. And it's only, to be honest, in these last few months that I'm bringing this out. That's the first time I'm bringing this out so clearly. I've been working for about 16 years, mentioning very little about this because I did not feel it came to a point where it could be shared easily with the public. It's only recently that I've started doing this. So that's the work that I do. Okay, so Sister Camila here. I have a question regarding tawakkul. Well, tawakkul and inspiration, by the way, are pretty much the same thing as I talked about here. So I find that a lot of people either rely on God after making dua, etc., and don't take needed actions. This is not tawakkul. Tawakkul is pretty much like inspiration. When you are in line with your heart and you harness your compassion, your passion and your love, and this will lead you to this divine will. You will sort of harness it. You will sense it out. And then you will get a sense of direction, and you will be driven to act on inspiration. So people who just say, I put trust in Allah, in God, and then they don't do anything, these people are acting from their ego, from a sense of motivation. And this is what's called laziness, by the way. But again, we humans are very good at masking, these fake states and giving them good names. So, and don't take needed actions, or they take actions without relying on divine will. Yeah, either someone who says, I, have trust and reliance on my Lord, they don't do anything, or they do everything and they do away with trust or reliance on their Lord. These are two sides of the same coin, by the way. They think it's either me who has a will or the divine who has a will. But again, because they're assuming they function at the same level. But that's just a complete misunderstanding. The healthy tawakkul would be take actions while relying on divine will. Yes, it actually depends on the sense of inspiration that we spoke about. So if we see people who take action get results without that reliance, yes, you can actually disengage from that divine will and be a hard worker and produce results. But to what end? To what end? A lot of the work these people do will be very destructive, will be about them making wealth or building their own empires while sending more people into poverty, abusing their employees, causing imbalance even in the environment, etc. Okay, so I hope this answers your question. How should we know our weak psychological parameters, and what is the proper way to solve them and to relate with inspiration? These are two questions in one. So relate to inspiration, and slowly you will develop a lot of clarity. Again, follow us on Rashidun, on the work that we do, and slowly you will start to develop inner clarity. Then you will see your weaknesses and you will actually embrace them. you will embrace these weaknesses. Some weaknesses you can work with to strengthen. Some of them you just have to accept and live with and find a way to complement them. Again, weaknesses are not something to, to look down upon. They're part of you, and they are purposeful. They're not just random. Okay, so Fatima here, Alhamdulillah, it was very inspiring and beneficial. Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair. I hope so. So Sister Camila again, how do you find your purpose or your thing? One has many interests or few interests and not sure which interest to focus on. Okay, when you have too many interests, then still you are on the journey to connect with your heart. The more you connect with your heart, you will start to undress all of the fake or the superficial interests. And really, you shouldn't spread yourself thin with trying to do too many things. There is a calling deep inside, and you need to harness that one. It might take some time to unfold, but that time is sacred. Don't try to speed things up. As long as you are in making progress in that direction, that's all you need. Really, that's all you should be doing at this moment. Okay, so Anwar here. What are few steps to start changing our approach from motivation to inspiration? Taking this webinar, go over it again if you have the time, and just please, because again, you got a first impression of what motivation versus inspiration is. You need to give it a little bit more thought and try to feel it within. Feel inspiration coming from within. I would say this is the first step. And in order to know how to do more, I mean, again, the work of Rashidun, that's all we do, really. That's our mission. It's about this, about helping people, live from the heart, harness that spiritual side within you, and then understanding how that works in the real world. So that's what I would say the first step. So Alexandra Watson. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Wa alaikum assalam. What age did you realize this change you needed to make? There was no one specific point in time, but as I reflect on my I would say early childhood, I would say roughly around 6 and 7, I showed a lot of resistance to the motivational paradigm. Really, I didn't know where it came. I didn't do it consciously, but it seemed it was very strong in me, resistance to that. In my teenage years, this was like the conflict really burnt me out. The conflict burned me out. There was, and I figure out my mind, I did not understand things so much in my mind, and I'm very thankful to Allah for this. I think the pull in my heart was very strong, and I always labeled it as a distraction. The moment I started to pay more, it was a gradual process, but I would say the most impactful turning point in my life was 13 years ago, when I was 30 years old. That was the biggest turning point in my life. Was like my whole direction started to change. But I'm telling you, I'm still going through so many turning points where this concept of inspiration, takes more root and gets hold of me even stronger. And one of them happened 2 months ago. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Alexander, for this question. Okay. Mahmouda, how all laziness is not bad? Yeah, laziness could be a resistance because, okay, if some people are allowing external influence to dominate them and give them direction, so they are already abandoning, the voice of their heart. Your heart is going to push back, and your heart will push back. How will that translate in the real world? Through laziness, procrastination. So if this is the case, you want to pay attention. It's not like, oh, okay, it's good to be lazy. No, it's not good to be lazy, but laziness could be coming from a very good place. It's telling you, hey, you're drowning your true voice. You're trying to adopt a path that is not for you. You're just trying to meet people's expectations. So your heart is giving you a very strong message. So in that sense, you need to pay attention to laziness and listen to the message hidden within. Yeah. Okay, so Zakia, how do I access my heart again? I have suppressed and ignored my soul for years, and I feel very lost today. Believe me, all of us are this kind of person. So again, this would be a long answer, but what I would say, follow whatever we offer on Rashidun. Again, this is our mission. This is our mission to help people do just that. So if you follow us, inshallah, we hope we will be able, to serve. Allah will enable us to serve you in this regards. Okay, Fatima, jazakallah khair wa iyyakum. Najneen, assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam. Is this video, or will this video be available on YouTube? Yes. Our YouTube channel is called Rashidun.com. Rashidun.com. So inshallah, it will be uploaded. I would say give it 12 hours and inshallah it will be uploaded.
Can I add something, Sheikh?
Yes, please, Adnan, go ahead.
Yes, I think 12 hours would be a safe time till it's available on Rashidun. The video, as we're speaking right now, is being streamed on YouTube and is public at the moment as well. So right after the session ends, if you go to Sheikh Moutassem's Facebook page, you will find a link to the video. And then after 12 hours, a more edited video will be published. So we'll have to do some editing to the current stream. And a proper, more official link will be available in 12 hours. But right now, a link is available.
Jazakallah khairan. Okay, so Sister Camilla, how do we know if the laziness is serving the purpose you mentioned or its avoidance of discomfort? Yeah, unless you sort of develop a good understanding of your inner calling and the voice of your heart, then it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. So you need to know where this laziness is coming from or where this resistance is coming from. So just develop self-clarity. You don't need to do away with the laziness now. Be comfortable where you are. Just, go deeper within yourself, and slowly, as you connect more to your true self, things will start clearing up. It takes time. That's natural. Don't rush that. Okay, Sister Seema here. How do you stop yourself from falling into fear? If you have a dream you wish to accomplish, but are afraid you won't make any money. I think, okay, Sister Seema, this might be coming from, again, a motivational paradigm. So motivational paradigm is all about, if you don't make money, you're not good enough. If you're not succeeding, you're not good enough. So your self-value depends on it. And that's probably where fear is coming from. So what I'd recommend is, please don't let external voices drown your true voice. Don't let that happen. It's going to be very painful. I'm telling you, if anyone just listens to external voices and pushes their life in that direction, they might achieve some monetary success, but I'm telling you, the older you grow, the harder it becomes to fix things. And you might get to a point where your life becomes very miserable. Don't drown the voice inside of you. It's extremely dangerous business. I'm telling you, it could really mean a very miserable life afterwards. It could mean a dead heart, on the long run. So don't do that. Money is a provision from Allah. As long as you listen to your voice, you bring your contribution into the world, I'm telling you, you're gonna become an active agent, a contributing agent. Divine will utilize you as an instrument for good. And if you bring good into the world, you're adding abundance into the human experience. When you add abundance, Allah responds in kind. The Lord of the world responds in kind. You bring in abundance, Allah will bring abundance in your life. It doesn't have to be your bank account. There are so many people who don't have lots of finances, but they're living a very rich life. So, and again, so the more abundance you bring, the more abundance will come to you. And you can only bring abundance to the world when you are acting from that place within. So Aqsa Mahmoud, I believe here. Have you got any book where all your sayings is in one place? No, but inshallah, I am working on something, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time because, again, not everything is, I'm not able to articulate everything very well yet. it's work in progress, and I'm not gonna rush that thing. When it comes, inshallah, it comes. Okay, Adil, Assalamu alaikum, Adil. How do parents develop the true purpose of life in their children practically? Good question. Unless the parents have done this work, they can't help their children. Unless the parents do this thing themselves, they cannot give it to their children. This is teaching by being. If you teach by words, you're just going to create more confusion. If you create by being, then that's proper teaching. That's proper education. And I receive this a lot from parents. How can I help my kids do this? How can I teach you can't. You can't. If you are not what you're trying to teach, if you don't embody, really embody, not pretend, not act things externally, if you are not a real manifestation of what you're trying to get your kids to learn, you're not going to teach them. They're not going to learn. As simple as that, I'll be honest. There's no nice way to put this. But I think that's a relief, actually. Okay, so Camila, please do more of this work. Islamic personal development is much needed now, inshallah. Just make dua that Allah facilitates this. Sister Sima, how do you find that balance between practicality and following inspiration? I think I said that in the final slide. If you go back to the slides, inshallah, you will see this. The more you tap into yourself, practicality starts to come in slowly. At the beginning, yes, inspiration sounds impractical, but this is just part of the growth. Just like any tree, when a tree starts growing, you shouldn't expose it to strong wind. It will break. Why? It needs, some kind of protection at the beginning for it to reach a certain level of growth where then it can stand any wind. The same thing applies to inspiration. There is some level of incubation, if you like. It needs to grow a little bit before it becomes practical. So if you are so hasty to get practicality, then you definitely going to sacrifice that inspiration for the sake of a surface layer of practicality. But again, that's going to keep you stuck for the rest of your life. So this is why patience is important. There will be a stage of impracticality. That's true. That's not because inspiration is impractical. No, it's just because you are undoing the damage of motivation. That's it. So it's just part of the process. It's unavoidable most of the time. Okay, Sister Sarah Radwan here. Jazakallah khair wa iyyakum. Lovely talk. I have started to slip into really living from the heart in a connected way. And last couple of months, everything is just being laid out for me, alhamdulillah. But I am obese and I am not sure how to approach losing weight. I've tried to just accept and just be and allow anything to happen or just listen to myself. But there is a constant physical reminder. Jazak, thank you so much for sharing this. So again, if obesity is not a medical condition, like it's not a hormone imbalance or some issue. Some people have issues with their thyroid or some other, hormones and glands in their body. This needs to be treated. So if it's not a chemical imbalance in the body, if it's a matter of overeating, by the way, is a way of compensating for not being in touch with your heart. Believe me, there is pain. If the human being abandon their true self, which is their heart, there is pain. And that pain usually translates as overeating, as self-harm, as boredom, and so on and so forth. So again, if it's not a medical condition, you might want to explore, how you define yourself. And transitioning to the soul, by the way, to your sense of self, true higher self in the soul, and abandoning the self that is related, the ego that is connected to the body, is a very good way to lose weight. I'm kidding you not. I've seen people lose weight just by that. Because if you are stuck in the ego, you define yourself as the body with cravings. And it's real, it's painful. And there's a way of medicating that pain, that existential pain, with any kind of addiction, including addiction to food. So when you experience a real shift in identity to your heart, to your soul, you see yourself as not your body, and you can look at your cravings from a distance, and you actually develop a choice whether to respond to that craving or disengage from it. And it's extremely empowering and comfortable. It's not like, it doesn't feel like deprivation. Maybe inshallah we can talk about this later on, but it's a good, beautiful topic, by the way. Okay, so it's a journey, Shaykh. You will get there as there is strength in truth, and truth will come, inshallah. Okay, so Sister Amina, when I motivate myself with watching a video, my days go well, but soon after a few days, I feel again the same. I lose my way again. What is my purpose in life? I make myself confused. Yes, again, motivation should come from within. You should harness that thing within you. There's no harm with some encouraging words, but if you are completely dependent and addicted to motivational stuff, it means, again, you're running on empty, and you just, again, it's just like you're getting it. You don't have real energy, and you're just getting energy from empty carbs like sugar. Obviously, this is just going to ruin your health, and this will ruin spiritual health. So I would say just dive deeper, dig deeper within yourself. Sister Fatima Hersi, assalamu alaikum. Do you believe that social media overuse influences us to use motivation? Absolutely, because a lot of social media is about other people's opinions and attention and validation. So it's important to be purposeful about your use of social media. Define why do you use it, and you need to allocate time that serves your purpose only. Don't get carried away with social media. It could ruin your inner system. Okay, Safiya here. Striving by the will of Allah to get the worldly success which may benefit is also necessary. Well, again, you can strive, but there will be a lot of damage on the way, and there will be no optimal results, even if there is lots of like numbers, great numbers, but the barakah, the blessings is gone, and there will be a lot of people sacrificed on the way. I know people who are motivated, who do charity work, they abuse volunteers, and they cause them burnout, and they cause a lot of emotional damage to them. Why? Because I'm motivated to do something for the sake of Allah, for the sake of helping the poor. That's usually how these things end up. So just be careful. Okay, so Burhan, again, how do we get out of the rut of motivation and find out what's our true calling? Again, I would say, please follow us on Rashidun. Inshallah, that's what we're trying to do. It is a process, and it's natural, but because we are stuck, as you said, sometimes it needs a little bit of guidance and help and support. So that's what we're trying to do. Are there any books you recommend about this topic? I would recommend you read the book called Flow, psychological flow. Is actually helpful in this regards. It is by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Again, his name is difficult, but you just if you Google it, the book on flow or the psychological state of flow, it is the main resource. This book. So I would recommend this for the time being. Okay, so. But this is not specifically about inspiration or motivation, but it's related. So Mamuna, Khizr, there's a lot of questions. I'm not sure if we should. What do you recommend, Adnan?
We should take the questions, Sheikh.
Okay, perfect. I'm cool.
Yes, please.
Okay. So Mamuna Khizr here, can you share how you use this inspiration model in raising your kids? Can you share what it would look like in real time, like day to day? Okay, so I can't do that now fully, but I'm just going to give you a small glimpse. And inshallah, we're thinking actually one of our upcoming free webinars will be actually on this. So I will be talking about that. And I'm actually thinking of, packaging it in a good sort of seminar or training. Hopefully, inshallah, if I can do a good job with this. So basically, I used to judge myself as a parent, as a good father, by the behavior of my kids. and I became very judgmental. And I realized I started being, having expectations from my kids, wanted them to behave. And I realized I stopped giving some space for their own, for their own vulnerability, for their own innocence to unfold, because I wanted them to be the best, to behave well and things like that. And I forgot that as children they are in the process of growing. They're not a final product. They're not a finished product. So, but one day I realized, and this was a deep experience for me. I just realized, and there was a process behind it, but I don't have the time to narrate the story. I realized that my kids are not mine. They are just real souls who are going through this worldly experience, and they just happened to come into this world through me, and Allah decided, or Allah chose to entrust me with preparing them for this world and connecting them to their true purpose of this world. So they're not mine, they're not my property. And their behavior does not judge me or reflect me or anything. And I realized the only tool that I can use to deal with them was for me to be a good person, and then to offer them, to raise them in love, to give them my attention, to be present with them, give them my undivided attention, rather than discipline them from above. I went down to their level as a child, and I started treating them just as a human being. And I thought I was a channel for God's mercy to be in their life. That's it. So I saw myself as an instrument to bring Allah's mercy, God's mercy, into their life. I was just a tool. And I put myself in that place. And I started treating them as my companions. Whatever they do, they are just children. And when the time comes, they will figure this out. All I need to do is just act from a place of love. I took them as my friends. And every time they gave me a hard time, I realized I'm on a mission. I'm doing my purpose. And I realized any kind of beautiful story has moments of struggle. And since I'm struggling, I don't need to read a novel. My life in this way is a novel. I don't need to read about anyone's struggles. My life is a struggle. So this is life happening. Why should I expect life to be so easy? So in this case, I stopped judging them. I started accepting any way they behave. I accepted that as coming from a good place. I found no need to judge them. I was blessed with this time to spend this part of my life with them. And I decided to make this a spiritual experience, the best. So I want to be a good presence in their life. I want to be a good influence. And that's it. And I found out that whatever I feel rubs off on them and influences them. And I found out that by not picking on their mistakes, just me trying to be honest and be present in their life, like fully, like my attention is there with them fully. And I was comfortable even allowing them to see that sometimes I was unable to deal with certain things, and that I would just learn how to deal with these things. It's okay that if I don't know. So they started to grow more comfortable. Even in my presence, they're more comfortable with their weaknesses. The fact that they don't know, they started to grow. I didn't need to teach them to be comfortable with that. They saw me comfortable with not knowing and with being unable to do something. They started to see that it's okay. So they just felt it, and they started to embody that. And at this point, they are my best friends. They are my best friends. We play together, we read together, we study together, we travel together, we eat together, we make food together, actually. And like we do everything together. And believe me, they teach me just as much as I teach them. So this is how it actually ended up being with my kids. I didn't plan it this way. It just started unfolding. I was just open. I was not judgmental. Okay, so Safiya, do you think this message to balance spiritual and worldly life should go out from our scholars who inspire? Safiya, I'm not really sure what that means. I'll be honest with you. But Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. Najneen, how we parents should teach our kids, motivational or inspirational? I mean, shouldn't we show them the way they should go in life? Yeah, absolutely. You should. You should. And from a place of inspiration, this will come naturally. You will be inspired to do that because you'll be doing this from a place, from a sense of mission, rather from a sense of an obligation or a chore. Or let them follow their own path. No, there is some space for them to follow their path, but you are there to guide them. You are there to show them the direction. You are there to, when they make something wrong, to discipline them. Again, but you discipline them with love, not with harshness, right? So again, this doesn't, I can see where this is coming from, by the way. When you think about inspiration, and again, you're approaching inspiration from a paradigm of motivation, you think I'm suggesting to do nothing. But that's, again, you're judging inspiration from a place of motivation. And for you, inspiration sounds as doing nothing. That's not what it is. You're getting the wrong idea. Inspiration is completely different. The inspiration, there's more power. There is more potential. There is more momentum in inspiration. And this is, by the way, this is what sincerity really means. Forcing things into being is not a good recipe. I'm telling you, it creates a lot of bitterness. It destroys families, creates a lot of resentment. It destroys a lot of relationships. So please don't judge inspiration from a place of motivation. Again, if the idea does not register with you, I would say leave it, no problem, that's fine. But don't make a judgment on inspiration as if it means doing nothing. It doesn't. And if that's the impression you got, I think you were not paying attention to what we were saying. Okay. By the way, the biggest achievers in the world who really make a difference in any field are people who act from inspiration. They don't act from motivation. And this has been a personal observation. It's been an obsession for me, by the way, as I was reading a lot of biographies and the lives of many people who have achieved something. You're going to see the ones who have brought the most beautiful, contributions in human history from any background, by the way, any background, were people acting from inspiration. Okay, so Sean Zia, so academia and the corporate infrastructure isn't equipped to deal with COVID-19. I'm not sure what this has to do with. Okay, so do you believe Allah created this situation? Sean, I remember your question from the course, by the way, and by the way, I'll take note of this question and your previous question. The problem is with how you formulate your question. I'll be honest with you. The way you are speaking about Allah shows that you are looking at Allah from a wrong perspective. So, and answering a question that is incorrectly formulated does not work. So, but I promise I'll take note of this question. Brother Adnan, if you can please copy and paste all the questions, do that for me just in case I forget, because I will treat them on Facebook, inshallah. I want to treat them.
Inshallah, all the questions will be saved right from the chat. So if you have any unanswered questions, we will have a record of them because I'm sure we won't be able to get to all the questions. And also, Sheikh, it's about 10:48 now, Pacific time. My suggestion would be that we can still take a few more questions. But before we end, I would love if you tell people about the upcoming course as well, and then I'll post the links in the chat.
Yeah. By the way, about our upcoming course, a lot of this, how to understand this divine will and how it works, and how to connect to it, how to work in harmony with it, actually is actually part of our upcoming course on Al-Qadr. So again, this is a very short webinar, and it's hard to really go in depth. But a big part of the course of Al-Qadr is actually how to understand this divine will and how it animates the universe, and how to relate to it at the spiritual level, at the cognitive, intellectual level, at the emotional level, and then at the practical level. And I'll actually answer a lot of the questions here that assume that inspiration does not mean you will actually get to do a lot of work. So it will answer this. So inshallah, so this is a course, inshallah, towards the end, Brother Adnan will give you the specifics. It's on the qadar, which is predestination. And really, it's about reality and about, it gives you a very healthy sense of the worldview. Okay. So Sister Camelia, Sheikh, what's the best way to explain to someone who says, what is the point of dua or relying on divine will? By the way, this will be dealt with in Al-Qadr, but again, this is a big topic. If you see people who take action, get results without that reliance, I hope my question is clear. Well, again, there is a bias. You see people working, there's a lot of people who work and get results, and there are more people who work and don't get results. And the thing is, there is something called the success bias, I believe. Yeah, success bias. Only success stories get to be told. And this is something that is known in social sciences, by the way. And this is the problem of depending on anecdotes, stories, individual stories. Because somebody will tell you, oh, somebody followed this formula and they succeeded. Or 10 people of them followed this formula and succeeded. But you don't get told about the hundreds of people who followed the same formula and didn't work out for them. So this is a matter of bias in perception. So be careful with regards to this. But don't forget, Allah designed this world in a way that when you follow causal chains, you become effective. But that doesn't mean everything you do will be successful. There's actually successful people, and this is a common statement they say. They say people think that everything we do succeeds. No, but we succeed more than other people because we also fail more than them. The thing is, with who we label as successful people are people who are willing to keep trying, and they fail a lot. But the people who don't do and don't succeed, they're ones who try or they try things, once or twice, and they don't fail as much. Actually, there's more failures in the life of any successful person than there is success. But there's the bias. Only the success stories get told. So just realize that we are sometimes stuck. We are sometimes stuck in our perception. So it's important to understand this. Okay, Sister Leiba, I believe here. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Alaikum salam. Thank you. Please make more webinars, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Okay, Sister Sally. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam. How can we utilize these concepts to guide our youth so they don't get lost in the conflict with Western concepts? Well, I would say, again, the more you learn about these things, and as I said, it's our attempt, inshallah, it's our goal and purpose in Rashidun to bring these concepts more. And we just started, to be honest. So if you work on this yourself, slowly, as you have them, it starts to, rub off on people around you. So that's what I would say. And again, everything takes time. So don't try to rush through things. Sister Nusrat here, can we summarize that inspiration comes from a place that trust in Allah? Yes. Asking Him for everything you want? Yes. And you will be inspired. Once you tap into your heart, there is momentum there, and you will be inspired to do. The Prophet ﷺ was inspired to do. Anyone who's really achieved something great and beneficial in life, they were moved by inspiration. People assume, many people, when they act from a paradigm of motivation, they think, oh, inspiration means you just sit back and you don't do anything. That's actually not true. This is motivation with laziness. This is lack of motivation. But what we're talking about is a completely different ball game. It's different. And unless you experience it, you don't know what it is. That's the issue. So don't follow, don't deprive yourself of this by judging it from that place. Okay, you start being guidance, clarity becomes more natural. Yes, you're right. And this support from Allah, truthfulness, goodness leads to barakah. Yes, and a multiplier effect. Very nice way to put it. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Sufyan Shahid, would you say all hard work is bad? No, again, that's just a misunderstanding. Just a misunderstanding. It's just where hard work comes from. It's not a matter of hard work, but it's a matter of where hard work comes from. If it comes from the right place, then it's praiseworthy and it pays off. But if it comes from the wrong place, it becomes self-serving, and although it brings results, but it messes up everything else. That's the point. Okay, I think we should stop here. So we will take the questions, and maybe it's actually a good thing to do maybe on Facebook. Then we will start, answering these questions that have not been answered, inshallah, because some of them actually require a little bit more explanation. Some of them require a little bit of addressing the assumptions that are in the question. Okay, so let me then just say, inshallah, I've seen a lot of these questions actually are things that we are going to deal with in depth in the course of Al-Qadr. And the reason why I say a course of Al-Qadr, it's actually it's a long course. It's about 2 months of every Saturday. So it's longer, we have more time, and we expect less numbers to come, and we're only allowing actually a limited number of people so that we can give individual attention, because there will be dealing with cases like this. There will be work. We'll make you into groups, and there will be discussions, and we will have to go through scenarios and address them and break them down. So there will be this kind of mentoring, this kind of coaching, individual attention, because again, it's a deeper topic and it requires a little bit of work, more academic work, rather than just a delivery from one person and you just receive. So if anyone is interested, I would recommend you actually consider the course, the upcoming course on Al-Qadr. Again, it's a different experience than our previous course, which was on the names and attributes of Allah. It goes way, way deeper. And again, there is more discussion. There is more application because we have more time. And we're going to address things that relate to how we live our life, how we relate to Allah in life. How do we understand what happens in the world? How does the world move? And how do we find our sweet spot in the world so that we run in harmony with divine will that always manifests? So, and how do we understand the concept of evil? There's evil in the world. How do we understand that? How does Allah allow evil? Why does He allow evil? And how does that serve a greater and a more noble purpose? And a lot of the things that seem to be contradictory in life and they don't make sense, we will, by putting all of that in the right context, you will see how everything actually in existence makes full sense, including your place in the world. So I hope this, inshallah, encourages those who are interested interested in this kind of content or subject, inshallah, to consider the course. And I hope, inshallah, we will be able to give you a very unique, inshallah, learning experience. And again, our mission in Rashidun is to give practical knowledge. It's to give knowledge that will help you go through life, connect to your Lord, and still be relevant to your times and be practical, produce results. This is basically our purpose and our goal. So I would say from my side, I want to conclude, then hand you over to Brother Adnan. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah reward you. I appreciate you giving us your time. May Allah reward you. And I hope, inshallah, that you enjoyed this and that it was thought-provoking. The main purpose of this is actually to get you thinking, to give you some fresh, fresh outlook on the whole concept of motivation, inspiration, and how you can actually achieve the most in your life, really achieve the most and the best in your life. So may Allah reward you for your time, and I hope you found it beneficial, practical, and enjoyable. And looking forward, inshallah, to seeing you in more of our events. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Over to Adnan.
Jazakumullahu khairan, Sheikh. May Allah bless you. May Allah elevate your ranks. And may Allah allow all of us, everyone watching live or everyone who will be watching the recording later on, may Allah allow all of us to be on truth. It was indeed very inspiring and thought-provoking, and thought-provoking from a deeper place within us and not just in the mind, I would say. So Jazakumullahu khairan. I would like to thank every single one who has joined us in this webinar. I recognized a lot of familiar names from our previous course and our previous webinars. So Jazakumullahu khairan for tuning in once again. I've posted some information in the chat. And for people who will be watching the recording, you will find this information on Sheikh Moutasem's Facebook page. Inshallah, the Qadr course, which is not yet made completely public, it is open as an early bird initially to the participants of the previous course on names and attributes of Allah and participants of this webinar. But inshallah, within a few days, the course will be made public. You can still register for it from the link that is posted in the chat. I have also posted the registration link to next month's webinar. We have planned webinars for every single month in 2021. And the next webinar is on Sunnah, a heart-centered approach. Registration link is also in the chat. Jazakumullahu khairan. Stay tuned for the recording of this webinar on Rashidun's YouTube page and for information on Sheikh Moutasem's Facebook page. Your questions and your feedback are always welcomed. You can email us at admin@rashidun.com, admin@rashidun.com. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.